today's show, Laura Heywood interviews
Madam Secretary on CBS and Waitress the musical on Broadway and a whole bunch of other stuff. Erich Bergen. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood, and today my guest is Erich Bergen. Before we go any further, I want you to know that his first name is spelled E-R-I-C-H. There's an H in there. Please don't forget that when you Google him or look him up on playbill.com. E-R-I-C-H. Bergen. He's back on Broadway in a role he first played in 2018, the awkward yet sexy Dr. Jim Pomatter in Waitress the musical. You also know him as Blake Moran, advisor to Secretary of State Elizabeth McCord on CBS's Madam Secretary. And speaking of spelling, it's Madam without an E. And if you saw the Jersey Boys movie, he's Bob Gaudio, a role he also played over 1,000 times on stage. As if that wasn't enough, he's also a singer-songwriter, and he just announced this week that he's optioned the rights to turn a biography of the designer HALSTON into a brand new musical. Erich's a vocal supporter for cancer research, having survived testicular cancer, and he also recently teamed up with longtime New York Yankees star Bernie Williams and music producer Jay Dash to support the VH1 Save the Music Foundation, advocating for music education funding on Capitol Hill. I simply don't know where he gets all of the energy. He's here with me before performing 2 shows today. I'm certainly glad he is. Please join me in welcoming Erich Bergen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is my mic on?
It is. I can turn it up a little bit, or you can turn your headphones up a little bit.
Oh, there I am.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It takes a little getting used to. And, you know, I'm doing this thing where I'm engineering as well as hosting, which is kind of like stage managing
Yes.
a show you're also starring in.
Yes, it's like what's that show that's been running in Times Square where the stage manager is also the actress in the show? You know, it used to be all the way up.
Oh, yes. I
Perfect
know what
Crime.
you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been doing the same role for 30 years.
And she's also the stage manager.
And she's also the theater owner.
And I think the only audience member. So that's where we differ.
So I'm still, and you know, this show is fairly new. I'm still kind of getting used to it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And because it's live, I like to talk about the little
mishaps?
The learning process. You
Yes,
know?
of course.
I think sometimes, especially with podcasts, people edit them very slickly and, you know,
that's the whole
edit everything
point.
out. Except that I like having an excuse to not have to do all that extra work.
Absolutely.
So
we want to hear everything.
We call it live radio, and of course, it is live for the people who choose to pay this $6.95 a month to support me and my ability to do this.
That's right.
But it was important to me to make sure there was a free way for people to hear it too, because sometimes you don't have an extra $7 a month.
That's right. I absolutely. And for those who are listening via the podcast, this was at once live. Mm-hmm. And if you'd like to hear future things actually live, then you pay the fee.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's available exclusively for the first week for people who subscribe at dnrstudios.com/Laura.
Is this a pledge drive? Is there a tote bag involved at any point?
No, but we can move on from the plugs. We'll just plug your stuff for the rest of the hour. No, I always try to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
Just so people can return the favor.
Return the favor.
If
Absolutely.
they should like to.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about. Where do you want to start? You want to start with Waitress, with Madam Secretary,
this
with
is
this
your
HALSTON
show,
news?
Laura. This is your show.
All right,
you
let's
pick.
talk about the Tonys then, because
Okay.
we were both at the Tony Awards on Sunday night,
and I won.
You won for Best Actor in a
One-person show.
which isn't an award that exists.
Oh, I see.
So you were there with Shoshana Bean, your
I was.
Waitress co-star,
Yes.
and you guys were on the red carpet looking
Yes.
like a beautiful real-life couple.
Sure. Uh-huh. Yes.
What's so funny, Erich?
No. No, you know what? I got every year I get invited to the Tonys, being that it's on CBS, which is my network for Madam Secretary, and you know, it's the thing of like, who do you bring to the Tony? Like, you know, it's like you have to bring someone who can who gets it, who. Shoshana was there, and it was my first week with her. I thought, oh my God, there's no better date. I have to bring my leading lady, and she was the greatest, because you know, Shoshana has been in this business for a long time, and this is her Broadway return, and she's so beloved by the community. So, you know, we had all the same mutual friends, and it was just fantastic. It was such a great night. It was a long night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from it. Yeah, it was because, I worked the awards. My job was to make sure that all of the names and faces matched on the screen for the broadcast.
Oh, you
which
mean
is,
like when they go to the nominees and then
Yes.
the winners and all that? Oh, that's a good thing
It
because
is
we
a-
don't want that Michael Arden situation again.
Exactly. It's funny. Everyone always references that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever calls it the Christopher Fitzgerald moment, which,
Well, because
you know,
was Chris nominated that? Yes, he was. Chris was nominated for Waitress that
Yeah.
year. You're right, and
they put one. I can't. Was it Michael Arden's face on Chris's name or Chris's name on Michael
it was
Arden's
Chris's
face?
on Michael's name for Best Director
Yeah,
for
that's what it was.
Spring Awakening. I
So
want to say
that was not. I was not in charge of that year.
Okay,
but
good
I
to
have
know.
been for the last 2 years.
Right.
And it is so high stress. I can
course.
imagine that it's kind of like what you might feel going out on stage in front of a Broadway audience. I've never been on a Broadway stage as a performer, but like it just the.
I have a weird thing. I mean, I get walking on stage. And this is so weird, but I feel so much more comfortable on stage than I do walking into a crowded room, a party where I have to like make small talk with people. I mean, that will send me. I mean, I become that Michael in the Bathroom song from Be More Chill. I mean, that's me at any given party. But if you put me on a stage with 2,500 people and no script, and somebody hands me a microphone and says you have to entertain these people for an hour, I'm good. I've never felt better. I that's where I feel happy, comfortable, and relaxed. It's like walking into the Tony Awards to sit in the audience that I'm completely petrified.
I've seen you do cabaret shows before, and you really are at home up there.
I am at home with it. Yes. There's sometimes I wish that during Waitress that there wasn't a script so I could just, go off. But
You'd improvise, Dr. Pomatter?
Of course.
You'd be like, maybe this is a good idea, me and you.
Right. Okay. Maybe not that drastic of an improv, but yeah, I do. I'm comfortable there. That's my comfortable.
Do you
place.
have a backstory for Dr. Pomatter that goes beyond what's in the script? Like, what is going on with him and Francine that he's so eager to get in the pants of one of his patients?
Well, that's the funny thing, right? I mean, we think of Waitress as this show that is it's a great time and it's hilarious and it's also extremely heartwarming and it makes you feel good at the end. But it does ask a lot of questions, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think, Dr. Pomatter, as it turns out, is like not great at his job.
Yeah, he doesn't know what a doula is, and he's an OBGYN.
Right, yes, well, there's that part of it, but it's also to me the thing is like you're risking your license here, to
Yeah, super problematic.
Right. Not that it's not done, but backstory. No, I'm not a big person in backstory. I'm a big believer in play what's on the page, and especially in a show like this where it's really about play those jokes, play those moments, because it's really not about being a doctor and all that type of stuff. It really is just about two people who are stuck in places in their life that they're not happy with, and they find kind of a spark of joy in each other when they maybe shouldn't. And I think when you have a great actress to play opposite, like I've had with Catherine McPhee and Stephanie Torrens and Shoshana Bean, those moments kind of come naturally. I don't need to decide what my character had for breakfast that day.
We know what he had for breakfast. He had mermaid marshmallow pie.
Oh, that's true. That's right. And you're absolutely right. Boy, you know that show.
I've seen that show so many times I've lost count. I have seen every single Jenna.
Really?
Well,
except for Molly. Have you seen Molly?
I have not seen Molly,
Oh,
and
she's
Molly and I are
fantastic.
friends in real life, so
Yes.
I really want to. But I've seen Stephanie, Shoshana, Sarah, Jessie, Catherine.
Oh my God.
Am I forgetting anybody? I don't know. I've seen as many as I can
Yeah.
think of. No,
Nicolette.
and of course
Oh my
Nicolette
God.
Robinson. I was not
Yes.
only there on Nicolette's opening night, I was there twice more while she was there, and she's probably my favorite.
She's fantastic.
She's the only real life mama to play the role. It's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
And
that's very
she
true.
like they're in scenes where, and I understand there's probably some people listening who haven't seen the show, but hopefully they've seen the movie so they can at least relate.
Do you know
to
I've never seen the movie?
Really?
No, I still haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh.
I hear it's good.
Do you know that my favorite line in the musical, which is the most lyrical lyric I've ever heard, is actually a line in the movie, which is, oh my gosh, shoot, I say it to myself all the time, and now I can't come up with it. I can see the whole meaning of life in those sad eyes.
I can find the whole meaning of life.
I can find the whole meaning of life.
Oh, I didn't know that's a line. Oh my
Nathan
God.
Fillion says that to
Wow.
Carrie Russell in the kitchen.
Wow.
He visits her to learn to make a pie at her house, not at the diner in the movie.
Oh, wow.
And I actually I live on the west side between Chelsea and the West Village, and there's Adrian Shelley's garden is there. And so every time I walk by there, I make a little detour to walk through the park, and I put on "You Matter to Me."
Oh my gosh!
And I just take a minute. There's some lilies planted by a plaque by her name overlooking the building where she was killed.
Yes.
And I just have a moment, and I remember what the source of this incredible story was.
Well, Adrian's was a stage door manor kid, which is where I went.
Yeah.
And so there's that connective tissue, and her daughter, I believe, goes to stage door now, or did, or something like
Really?
that. Yes. But so that was another big reason why I wanted to do this show, was that connection, because stage door is kind of my second home.
Were you there at the same time? Did you know her?
No. No, Adrian was older than me. I was there. Stage door. I was there from '96 to '02. 7 years of
That's
of
when
my
I was
life.
in college.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen.
I feel like we're the same age, but
we are the same age. We are the same age.
Except that you were going to summer camp when I was going to college.
Just stay where you are. I'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there with. Oh my gosh, my first year, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Mandy Moore was my first show. She was so good. We knew then she was good, but she was Amanda Lee Moore then.
Wow.
And then what else did I do there? I did Side by Side by Sondheim with a young Leah Sarfati, who then became Leah Michelle.
Yes.
And one of my roommates was Sebastian Stan. Who else was I there with? Natalie Portman, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Zach Braff.
I wasn't there with Zach, but Zach and I absolutely we both went to Stage Door, and we've become friends post Stage Door.
Got it. I just knew that you and he both went there because
Yes.
you guys are doing something really special with Stage Door right now,
Yes.
and a young Waitress band.
Yes.
You want to tell people about that?
Well, I think there's the video, and remind me, is Adrian, right? And yes. Adrian is this wonderful young kid who was seen on YouTube and Facebook singing "She Used to Be Mine" from Waitress, and that video went around like wildfire. And Sarah Bareilles retweeted it, and it was great. And we kind of Zach Braff really reached out. Zach tells the story. Zach and I had the same mentor at Stage Door, a man named Michael Larson, who recently passed away, and Michael was. Michael was our main teacher there, and Michael even played Zach's audition for Bullets Over Broadway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Was that Zach's Broadway debut?
It was.
Yeah.
And Zach tells the story that when he saw that video of Adrian, the first thing that he wanted to do was send the video to Michael. Realizing that he couldn't, he decided to reach out to Adrian to see what the situation was, who this kid was, and he kind of had a sucky situation, and Zach decided to pay for him to go to Stage Door.
Is that happening this summer?
That's happening this summer,
like
I believe.
Right now?
Yeah, I think that's still in the works, and then a couple of us are helping with some other costs as well. But I think that's what it's about. I mean, it's. For so many of us theater kids who felt like outcasts at any given time, a lot of us who were lucky enough to have parents who could pay for a place like Stage Door, which is not cheap. It really changed all of our lives. Dana Steingold, who's in Beetlejuice on Broadway right now, is another. Michael's students are all over Broadway at any given time. So it is about furthering the story, as it were, furthering the gift that we all got and passing it on to the next generation, because there's no one who shouldn't have access to great arts education and a better life. So whatever we can do, those of us who have been lucky enough to be successful in this business, whatever we can do to kind of send the elevator back down, it's kind of our mission.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, I've watched this Adrian video like 100 times.
He's incredible.
Let's listen to a little bit of it. This is like a 12-year-old
I know.
boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go to YouTube and search "She Used to Be Mine." Actually, if you just put in Adrian Waitress,
Yeah, there it
you'll
is.
Find him.
Yeah. If I could sing like that when I was that age.
You wouldn't have needed to go to stage.
It's
door
true.
manner. I know. Okay, so
We've changed topics so many times.
you've been in. Well, we've been mostly talking about Waitress.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You've been in Waitress. You've been back for a week.
Yes, this is
And-
the beginning of my second
And
week.
for the second year in a row, you've gone in Tony's week.
I know.
So
yes.
Did you have to do a lot of rehearsal to come back, or is it like still in your body?
It was so still in my body, and so much so that the second time back, I didn't do a put in. I didn't do a full tech put in. I literally just ran the scenes with Shoshana twice. One of the scenes I only did once, and that was it. And then I said, and that was on a Friday. And then I said, great, see you Tuesday at 7.
What surprised you most about Shoshana as opposed to the actresses that you'd worked with in the show before?
I don't think people know how good of an actress Shoshana Bean is. She gets so much attention for her voice because that's what she's been focused on for the past decade, I want to say. You know, she's been putting out her albums and doing a lot in the R&B pop world. And she's incredible. But I think people forgot what she can do as an actress, and she's absolutely incredible in this role. And everyone, I mean, Kat McPhee came to this role so differently, just in just the approach from the first minute she stepped on stage. It was very different. So it's so exciting to me that I get to play. You know, that first week I was still I still knew my old show with Catherine, and then I kind of after the first few performances I settled in to find what this new show was with Shoshana, because it was completely different. And that's why people keep going back to Waitress, I think, is that it's a different show every time you see it. It's a different.
It really is.
Jenna is a different woman each time, and I think that's one of the main reasons why so much of Waitress's business are return customers. It's such a unique show in that it gives there's very few shows that allow that. There's very few shows that, especially in the musical theater, that someone can walk into it and make it not just, quote unquote, make it their own, but it's literally a different show. It's a different story when you have someone like Nicolette, who is a person of color, now being in a domestic abusive relationship with a white man. I mean, that became a different show. The way that the women act, their height, their voice. I mean, that's the other thing. Shoshana has this confidence that comes through her voice that is completely different than some of the other women that have played the role. So it's exciting to be in, but it's really exciting to watch. It's really exciting.
Did you come back and watch it a few times before you?
I did. I watched that Friday night.
Did you get to see Joey McIntyre as Dr. Pomatter? Because I did, and he was just as dreamy as I remember him.
I'm sure.
When I first, he was my first love in elementary school.
It's very funny. I got a text earlier this year from our mutual pal Leslie Margarita, who was, I guess, in LA in a rehearsal room with Joey. And I guess Joey just, I guess, was like going over it or just rehearsing stuff, and asked his friend Leslie to help. And Leslie said, Joey wants to know what you did on this line.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes. I said, tell Joey McIntyre that I'm a big fan of Stay the Same. And also I did this on this line.
That's hilarious. It's funny that you mentioned Leslie, because you and I first met at a Leslie Margarita show.
Yes, we did.
She did a show at Birdland
Yes.
called, it wasn't called Dame. It was called Broads?
I think it was called Dames.
Was it?
I think it was called Dames.
It was something like that.
Or Broad seems a little. Broad seems
I'm
like
looking it up.
on the nose for Leslie Margarita.
I know, but I'm pretty
Also,
sure
if there's
that's
anyone who's not broad, it's Leslie Margarita. There's nothing
she
broad
is
about her.
A broad.
She is
yep,
a
it was
broad.
called Broad. I
Oh.
was correct.
All right, then I lied.
And you were wrong. But she was like, I'm going to pull somebody out of the audience. And then she
Oh, that's right. She did. I
pulled
forgot about that.
This tall, handsome guy sitting at the bar. And I was like, who is that guy?
And it was Cheyenne Jackson.
It was just as tall and just as handsome. And then I think she introduced us afterwards.
Yes.
so.
She's great. She's a wonderful performer.
And she's doing Flamingo Kid
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah, she's one of the greats. I mean, she's a real throwback to the Broadway that I love. I mean, she's that. Well, she's a broad. She's a Broadway broad.
She is,
Yeah.
and she owns it.
She
She's also
does.
the first person who introduced me to the concept of the Cooter Slam.
Oh,
Are
okay.
you familiar with that dance move? That's
I am. I wish there was a visual element to this show that we could showcase it right
Look,
now.
there's plenty of. If you just put in Leslie Margarita,
You'll find it.
that's video.
All right.
That's probably what we'll. Okay, can we talk about this new musical that you are writing?
I'm not writing it.
You just optioned it.
I'm producing. Yes.
You're producing it, but you're such a good songwriter.
Thank you. Well, I may end up writing some of the music. I don't know. We're talking to songwriters now.
This just came out in the news this week.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did that happen? Did you plan a release,
No.
or did you just happen to mention it and it got picked up by the press?
I accidentally, not accidentally, I was talking to Michael Musto Michael Musto, I should say, at the Plaza at the Tony party. We were just catching up, and I mentioned to him that I had optioned the rights to a book about HALSTON, the fashion designer, and he was very interested in it, and we were talking about it. He said, "Hey, can I put that in print?" And I thought, sure.
So he asked.
He asked.
That's
Oh, absolutely.
Nice. That's nice, because I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like sometimes you got to be careful what you say to people who are known for, writing a column.
Sure. Right. I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Michael's a wonderful writer and legendary in New York City, of course. And when he asked that, I said, that's not why I was talking to you, but yeah, sure, that'd be great. Fine. I wasn't planning on it at all because we don't have, while we do have a book writer and a director attached,
And they are?
yeah, exactly. We're not announcing that quite yet.
Got it.
We'll announce that later in the year. So, but it's very exciting. It's a very exciting story. There's a wonderful documentary out right now about HALSTON, and I'm very excited to get to work on it.
That's awesome.
I'll talk to you in
I
5
know-
years about it.
I know that the book that it's based on, not the libretto, but
Right.
the book it's based on was written by Halston's niece.
Yes, Leslie Frowick.
So is she going to be involved? Is this one of those things where you're like, let's collaborate on this, or where you're like, I want permission to do whatever I want with it, and then you can come see it?
It's kind of a mix of both. I mean, Leslie, as she really runs the HALSTON archives and knows everything and has everything. So I very much want her involved. But this is, look, it's as we know from Jersey Boys and from Ain't Too Proud and the Cher Show and the Elton John movie, you have to have a little bit of theatrical license to tell a story that works in a 2-hour window. So it's not about doing it exactly as it was. It's about, to quote Jersey Boys, remembering it how you need to. And of course, you always have to take that under consideration.
Right. But you also, like with the Cher Show, Cher got to sign off on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be sometimes problematic when the person is still here and alive, and still on the road. Like in the case of Elton or Cher. I mean, that can sometimes work, sometimes not work. The fact that HALSTON is gone, when you want to tell a story about someone, it probably helps not to have them in the room because they're going to want to, they're going to want to tell their story the way they want it to be remembered.
Right. I'm trying to remember who it was that said the best kind of playwright to direct is a dead playwright.
Well, exactly.
I can't remember, but it was somebody famous. Somebody
famous.
famously said,
Sure.
like, never direct the work of a living playwright.
Right, exactly.
Can we talk about Madam Secretary?
Let's.
When did you find out that season 6 was happening? Because it was like a real nail biter about whether...
I found out an hour before it was announced.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just found out in May?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly. I was literally in my car. I just had a meeting, and I walked back to my car, holding the valet ticket. And I got into my car, and I saw that Lori McCreary had called me. Lori's the producer of the show, and I missed the call, so I called her back, and she was announced. And she said, we are being picked up. And she said, we're being picked up for 10 episodes, and it will be the final season. And she said, I said, when are you announcing it? And I said, we're announcing it tomorrow. And I said, oh, okay. And then an hour later, she was like, I lied. They're announcing it in 5 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
So I guess she didn't know. I guess there was some confusion about when it was going to go live and that information. So so I only knew about an hour before it went. The actors found out just about an hour before it went public.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like on the final day of shooting season 5 when you didn't know whether that was a wrap on the series or just a wrap on the season?
It was weird because it was the final scene that we shot for season 5 was actually the first scene of that episode of the season finale. It was the scene where she walks into her office and announces her resignation to the press. But the last thing we shot was her saying, I'm officially resigning as Secretary of State. It didn't hit until you heard her say that, because when you're on a show like that, it's an old-fashioned CBS. I don't want to use the word procedural, but it is. It is kind of a procedural in some ways. You're doing 23 episodes a year at one point. You're doing 20 episodes this past season. Whatever it is, it's a lot more than the new wave of 10 episodes for Netflix. Mm-hmm. It's the old-fashioned network drama. 5 years of that, of that's your entire life. You take it for granted. You get lost in. It feels like yesterday we started.
Yeah.
And
it was 110 episodes you've done so far.
Right. And that's the thing that's like you lose sight of, especially when the show's going well and you're like, it's obviously getting renewed. It's obviously getting renewed season after season. And then it's like, oh, we're here. We are at that point now where you forgot about this part. You forgot that this was coming. And we sat in that room and we stood in that room and we watched her say it, and I thought, oh, right. Mm-hmm. Now the panic sets in. And panic is not even really what it was. It was really just kind of, is this really over? Is this how we're going to go? And we had a toast. We all had the mindset of we have to do one more season. We can't end the story this way. There's got to be some kind of, there was too much fan desire to have it back. We all kind of felt it's got to come back, right? So yeah, we didn't know. We truly didn't know, but we all had hope. And so when we all kind of took the approach of, we'll see each other in a minute. We're not doing the real goodbye now. So thankfully CBS is letting us have our a proper ending, and then we can do the proper cry. And,
well, it's nice to know, I think, to be like, this is going to be the last one.
From an actor's perspective, obviously, but I think also watching the show, to not have the rug pulled out from under you after 5 years as a viewer is a nice thing.
I also think that for the writers, I can imagine they can wrap it up in a way that doesn't have to simultaneously be a satisfying ending and a cliffhanger.
Correct.
Because that, I think, is the hardest part. In that last episode, when we find out that she's running for president, it is like, what's going to happen? But I could also see it being like, there's a chapter we're not going to get to see. The show's called Madam Secretary, so
that part is true.
We're only going to get to see her. So I feel like they did a good job of sort of making it satisfying either way.
I think that's true. Had it not been renewed, it actually would have kind of, in terms of storytelling world, it actually, that was the proper ending, because that was the end of her as Madam Secretary.
Right.
I think what we could really use right now is seeing a woman in office on television. Mm-hmm. So I think we would like to show that, and I think that's why we're doing this. Is that there's actually a point to doing this show, and there's a point to this next kind of mini season. There
Madam
is
candidate.
Well, I don't know if we're going to do the election cycle. I don't know if we're going to do a campaign. I don't know if we're going to fast forward to the future. They've kind of talked about a couple of different ideas.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
This could go into her potentially a presidency.
It could. I don't know. They haven't told us anything. I just know that a couple of different ideas have been talked about.
I feel like we could spin this into a really good gossip headline. Erich Bergen says it's possible the show will jump forward in time.
Well, it is possible.
Sure.
But it's also possible that I'm getting a spin-off.
Okay, let's put that in the
No one
headline.
has talked about that. I just would like to put that out there.
What would we call it?
Madam's Secretary.
Oh my gosh!
That,
yes.
I can't.
No, but you're not anymore. You're a policy advisor now.
That's true. I just think that Rick Ellis came up with that spin-off title, so I have to give him credit for that. No, it would be called Just Blake.
I get it.
Yeah.
What about Blake's love life.
I don't know. What about Blake's love life?
I mean, are he and Stevie going to be together?
You know, this
Because
whole,
I'm into it.
you know what the whole funny thing was? During the early seasons, I would have family members say, and people on Twitter writing in, "Oh, there's something on with you and Stevie." And Wallace, who plays Stevie, she and I would always talk about, like, what are these people seeing that we don't see? Like, what is wrong with these people that they're seeing that? And then we got that script where it says they kiss, and Wallace and I were like, are we just blind? Like, do we not know what we're playing? It was just so odd to us that Blake and Stevie would ever get together. But hey, listen, other people see it. We're not going to disappoint our fans.
Okay, good.
No, I'm just saying. I don't know. We have to. Blake's bisexual, so he can go all over the map. He can go. He had the thing. He had an ex-boyfriend that we met in season 4 or 3. I want to say. I think season 4. And then we have Stevie, so I don't know.
Well, he can go all over the map, but he can also be totally monogamous and in love with one person. You know what I mean?
But that doesn't make good television.
No, it doesn't. But I think that I love seeing characters like on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, who the openly bi guy who had a long-term loving monogamous relationship with a dude, and then we find out, spoiler alert, I guess, if people haven't watched the end of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, he marries a woman and he has these monogamous long-term relationships, and that's a form of bisexuality that is not often shown.
You're right. You're actually, and forgetting the bisexuality part for a second, I mean, one of the great things about Madam Secretary is that our two leads were watching a relationship that is not based in scandal. The two of them actually work as a wonderful marriage. There are problems along the way, but it's nice to see a relationship on television in a drama that isn't filled with sexual there's no cheating, there's no sex scandals, there's it's a nice thing to see kind of a real couple.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And just representation is so important on television. And so
listen,
also I feel like Blake has, because he was McCord's student, that he's always had this sort of
caution.
Yes, but also this sort of like mother-son thing
where
she has always like taken care of him and nurtured him and allowed him to grow into like an adult man under her watch in a way that I sort of like the idea of him joining the family in an official way. Even if it's not like, I'm not talking about marriage. I get it. I can see him falling into that role as a sort of son figure.
I think because of Blake's openness about so many things, he can kind of be a couple of different things. And I think that's one of the great things about that character, is that they've never really defined him as anything other than loyal. He's never, everything else is yet to be defined with Blake. And there's the bisexuality, and then there's the which is a definition, of course, but that took a while for audience to even find that out.
So, I just hope he stays bi and isn't like it was
a phase.
Well, I mean, I also have. We could go on a tangent. I could do a whole other show about the idea of sexuality and phases, because I think we all go through all sorts of phases in our life, and why should that be a thing? Like kids, I'm going to just rant for a second.
Please
off
rant.
Topic, but like, if your kid goes through a horse phase, you buy them books about horses, and if your kid goes through a boy band phase, you get them tickets to see the boy band, and if your kid goes through a hot pink phase, you go and get them a bunch of hot pink clothing, and you don't worry like, oh, maybe it's temporary and they're going to outgrow it, and we don't want to buy these hot pink clothes because she's not going to wear them again next year. But if she's like, maybe I like girls too, well then why can't you be like, great, like figure out who you are.
Absolutely.
And this is whether or not this is, how you feel for the rest of your life. It's who you are now. And
absolutely.
Like,
absolutely. And listen, when I got to do Blake's monologue coming out as bisexual, the amount of texts and DMs and messages I got in social media from people as far as India saying that they had now had the courage to come out to their family or they realized something in them. I mean, I'm telling you, I got hundreds of messages.
Where are they finding you, on social media?
Yeah, it was mostly Instagram and Twitter. Instagram because they could send a DM.
direct message,
Yeah. And it was, and even on Facebook, I mean, it was kind of crazy. I was not prepared for that. I knew that it was a 2-page monologue with no breaks that came out to about almost 2 minutes. And on CBS on Sunday nights, coming out as bisexual, unedited. They didn't cut a word from the original draft. So I knew that we were doing something. What I was not prepared for was that me as an actor who was cast in this part saying lines that I didn't write, that I was going to get the thanks, that people were now thanking me as an and that's that tough thing as an actor, that when people connect to something that you're doing, you want that. That's what you're looking for as an actor. But now all of a sudden I have this responsibility that I was not prepared for, that people were using me as the reason for feeling like themselves for the first time or coming out, or they attributed their confidence to me. I didn't know what to do with that at the time. I was thankful and I was grateful, but it was a lot of it sat heavy on me for a day, because I think I read all the messages, because I couldn't stop reading. It was bizarre. So I'm very happy that our show got to not only take on topics that are in the headlines and that there's so much misinformation about, but that our show also looked at the human condition and all that comes with that, and not kind of do what's so often done in television land. But, I got to do a 2-minute monologue on television coming out as bisexual. So it was, it's been a trip. It's been a trip, this show. I think this season will be very rewarding. And then I have to go find a job.
Well, you always have Waitress.
I always have Waitress. And maybe if I hurry up HALSTON, then it'll be that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes a long time to get a musical to Broadway.
It does. I say I'll talk to you in 5 years when we're promoting that.
Yeah,
We're actually
exactly.
trying to sell tickets to the show.
Let's hope that I've still got a job at that point.
You will.
Okay, so is the reason that you've been in Waitress 2 years in a row at the same time just because of when the filming schedule for Madam
Correct.
Secretary is?
Yes.
So does that mean that you start filming?
I close Waitress on a Sunday matinee on July 21st. At 5 a.m. on July 22nd, I start production of Madam Secretary.
Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
better not have too crazy a closing night party.
Well, that's what
It'll
the
be
makeup
like the
chair.
Tony Awards all over
No,
again.
that's what the makeup chair is for. They can erase all of the previous night's decisions.
Have you thought about the fact that you could probably just as easily play Earl in Waitress? Like, would you ever come back and play Earl?
Oh, really? You think I can play Earl?
I mean, we'd have to toughen you up a little bit, like put some medieval font across your chest.
No, I'd have to grow
I
out.
mean,
My beard is a little patchy.
But like, I feel like you're a good enough actor. I feel like if you were being typed in, you're typed in as a Dr. Pomatter.
I know, but I'd rather play Ogie.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you should maybe we can find 2 other people who can play all 3 roles and do like a rotating cast.
Absolutely. Waitress and Rep?
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts.
Believe me, I've Dreamcast Waitress so many times.
Can we talk about it? Because I have totally Dreamcast.
There's one
Waitress.
person who I want to play Jenna more than anything else. Anyone else?
Tell me.
Jordan Sparks.
Oh, she'd be good.
Yeah.
You know who I want to play Dr. Pomatter more than anybody else? Who hasn't done it yet?
Who?
Joshua Henry.
Oh, well, yeah, but you put Joshua Henry in anything. That's not fair.
Why?
He's brilliant.
Yeah, that's why I
No,
want...
they can't be better than me. That's you can't do that. That's not fair. I'm here right now.
I know. That's why I qualified present company excluded.
Oh, I see.
People who haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay, fine. Joshua Henry.
I mean, first of all, like you said, he's brilliant. He could do
Yeah.
He could play Jenna.
He could play Jenna.
but,
Absolutely. Can you imagine Joshua Henry singing "She Used to Be Mine"? I want that right now.
I mean,
I know.
we should call him.
Is he available?
I don't know.
Josh on the line.
You're the secretary.
That's true.
you dial it up.
That's right.
Let's talk about your solo music.
Yes.
So tell me how this works. I know that you grew up loving George Michael and Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
And
we can't say that. We can't say that I love Michael Jackson anymore. That's been.
I said you grew up loving him.
I know, it's so sad.
And we can say that you loved his music.
I still do.
Yeah, we can say that. Yeah,
I still do.
Right.
I still do. You know, that's the tough conversation that I think is part of when any of these people, you know, when you find out something, you know, and you know, whether you believe it or not, you know, whatever. I mean, you have to believe these. You have to believe when someone talks about that type of part of their life. The gentleman that spoke up about Michael.
Yeah, it's confusing because
It's confusing,
it's
yeah.
like how there are, and it's certainly at play with musical theater. You know, like shows like Carousel get revived, which like literally has a line in it about how sometimes when you get hit, it's like getting a kiss. It's
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think those. I personally don't think those shows should be changed. I don't think that My Fair Lady should be changed. I don't think that Kiss Me Kate should be changed. I don't get it.
It's just a question of like what. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying like what happens when the work when it's problematic and you love it and you can live in the duality of both things.
Yeah, I get it, but you know, things have to be, you know, they have to be taken for what they were at that time. It was written at that time. So if it's sensitive now, or if it's problematic now, don't do that show.
Right.
Like that to me is always. It's always odd when people want to change it. It's like everyone knows the original. Like, don't.
Well, have you seen Oklahoma?
I haven't seen this Oklahoma now.
Because I think that the way that this has been revived...
Well, because they didn't change a word,
they
right?
They didn't, no.
Right.
They changed the staging.
Right.
And they
right.
made... There's this great New York Magazine article, I think, called Oklahoma Was Never Okay. And it explains that this darkness was always there, just nobody ever saw it before.
That's a different case. That's a different case. That, to me, makes sense.
I also think, like, giving a woman an opportunity to direct a show like My Fair Lady could infuse it with some...
Exactly.
Anyway, that's not where I was trying to go with this.
I took it there. I apologize.
No, I guess...
I think with the Michael Jackson thing, or with anyone like that, I mean, you have to, but it goes with it's what I was saying about those shows. You have to take the art for if it makes you personally uncomfortable to see something, or listen to Michael Jackson's music or whatever, then you don't listen to it, you know, but I think it's very hard when someone who, like Michael, is part of the American soundtrack. I think it's very. Do we just not listen to Thriller anymore? Is that? I mean,
I don't know. Like Mel Gibson still gets invited to the Oscars.
Right.
It's like, how do you decide who gets who's like on the blacklist forever and who's not?
Right.
It's
a tough thing.
I'm not making a call again. Either way, I'm just saying, I believe that there is some way that we can live in the duality of appreciating something and knowing it's problematic. Like, I think that an idea could be to have a theater company called the Problematic Theater Company that puts on shows as museum pieces, and then as an Act 2 or an Act 3 hosts talkbacks about why this show should never be produced without talking about the problems.
Right.
You know,
but you can't call it problematic. You have to call it PTC, and then never tell people what it actually stands for, because it's too easy for the Times reviewers to say the Problematic Theater Company is staying true to its word.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a thought experiment, you know.
Yes.
It's not an actual theater company.
Oh, okay.
But I think that...
I thought we were opening this.
I don't know. I mean, if
you have any
HALSTON
time
is the next Hamilton...
Absolutely. Yeah, no, but listen, you know, my Michael's music is still so infused in my blood, and so I can't, you know, I don't know how to not have it be part of my life. I mean, it's just so important. But yeah, Michael and George Michael. I mean, before musical theater, I knew nothing about musical theater until my parents took me to my first Broadway show, which was Big the Musical, and then that same summer I went to Stage Door for the first time. But I never knew anything about musical theater. I was obsessed with MTV and all things pop music. I wanted to be, you know, popping out of a stage, you know, with pyrotechnics, and then shaking my butt to some song at the age of 2 or 3. So the solo music that I do is very much inspired by that world. It comes from that. It still comes from that part of my those inspirations in me.
Should we listen to one of your songs?
Oh, I'll take the royalty.
How about Running Through the Night?
Oh, I like that song.
I do too. Here it is.
Okay.
I'm getting used to seeing my father's face in the mirror, and all all my lovers, past and present agendas are clear. And I don't know, but it seems like I should have a bit more money by this stage. And every day I can't believe I've made it to this age. I go running, I go running through the night. I go running till I run out of time. Ooh, I go running through the night. I don't remember giving a damn about religion, 'cause all the preachers are stealing souls as their commission. And I don't know, but it seems like I shouldn't spend these days and nights alone. But I've seen the ending, it's dangerous what I already know.
Eric, it's such a beautiful song.
Thank you.
So where can people find it?
At their local Tower Records.
Oh my gosh, remember Tower Records?
Remember, I was there every hour on the hour.
Me too. I remember I would find albums and be like, what is this? Who is this new band, Pink Floyd?
Oh, yes, right.
Dark Side of the Moon
Yes.
is on the bestseller list. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, and I go, I wonder if they have any other albums. And I'd get laughed at by the person.
Tower
behind
was the best. I mean, both locations. It was, and you could spend, then you'd find that whole Broadway section. It was just the best.
I
Just the
remember
best.
going to a shop on Lakeshore Avenue in Oakland called Rainbow Records.
Oh.
Where I actually bought records.
What? Yeah, of course.
And that was like my earliest music memory. I'm trying to remember the first record I ever bought. I know the first CD I ever bought
Which was what?
What, the CD?
Yeah.
Was Electric Youth by Debbie Gibson.
Oh.
And then 1 week later, I got the Nelson
I
self-titled
just saw
album.
them. The Nelson Brothers.
Really?
They're so great. They sing.
You saw them perform?
Yeah, they were at Birdland.
Really?
Yes, with Victoria Shaw. They were unbelievable. They still sound incredible, and the hair is as blonde as ever.
And do they both still have long hair? Did one of them? I feel like
It's
one
a
of them.
little more chopped, but it's on the longer side.
I had a poster of them on my wall when it was like the post Joey McIntyre. Maybe one of them will come in as the next.
It's right. They're both. They're both playing Dr. Pomatter
They
in
could
rep.
just each do. Yeah, they could each do 4 shows. Shows a week.
That's right. My first show was my first CD was Michael Jackson's Dangerous. Actually, it was in November of 1991. We went to the Sam Goody down on like 8th Street and 6th Avenue, and because I grew up here in the city, and I'll never forget that night. But you can find my music at Spotify and iTunes and Amazon, and
there's like 10 songs from 2014.
I have
in there,
2
too.
other EPs, and then there's 2 singles that I put out last year, Running Through the Night, and then another one called Better in the Dark.
Plus, you've got Jersey Boys music.
I do, but weirdly in this country, my song from the soundtrack, Cry For Me, is not available to stream. You can buy it on iTunes, but for whatever, there's some kind of rights thing going on with the 2 songs that were from the actual movie soundtrack. Streaming on Spotify and iTunes, there's some issue with it, so I don't know.
Do you think it's a real Bob Gaudio? Do you think he's like...
Listen, if I know Bob, and I do.
Do you do?
Yeah, I worked with him for years.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's making sure that his rights are treated properly, and is going to hold out until he's properly.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm actually heading out to Atlantic City in a couple of weeks to go to opening night of Jersey Boys at the Hard Rock Casino.
Oh my gosh.
On the beach.
Like the Energizer Bunny, it just keeps going and going and going.
I know it does. I didn't even know that place was really out there. I'd never been to Atlantic City, but they invited me for this press event that Jersey Boys was doing a couple of months ago, and it worked.
It's still,
because now I'm going
now
out
you're
to
going.
see the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm so proud to be part of that legacy, and so I just wish it was streaming.
I know.
But the movie is streaming on Netflix right now, so you have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. I mentioned in the intro that you recently teamed up with Bernie Williams and J Dash to go to Capitol Hill and basically not campaign. You were
lobby.
Yeah, you're a lobbyist now.
I am. I know. I've taken an inspiration.
You're a
Yeah.
lobbyist.
Well, I'm a product of the New York City public school system, and I was lucky enough to have music education as part of that for a good amount of my time there. And New York is doing pretty okay, but around the country, the first thing that gets cut are, and we know this, is the arts programs in public school systems. And it's tragic because all of the scientific evidence, and I know that, this isn't an administration that's really behind the whole idea of science, but the science shows that students who have music education as part of their fully well-rounded education do better in test scores and their grades for math, science, English, everything. Music is the universal language. It is the thing that no one doesn't. The thing about music is that there's no one who doesn't understand it because it's a feel-based thing. And then when you actually start to learn the science behind it and you can connect emotion and science, it changed my life. It is the only reason why I was able to really succeed is because I had music education from an early part of my life. It's not about funding music education is not about becoming a professional musician or becoming a professional artist. What better training is there for the business world than being in an orchestra, learning to work with 60 other people to create this big thing that is what going into the business world is. So it's very important to me. And I work with VH1 Save the Music, who does, we do this thing with NAM, the National Alliance of Music Merchants, where we fly into D.C. 1 week every year to fight for funding to make sure that music education is fully funded as part of a well-rounded education. And if you want more information about all of this, you can go to VH1, Google VH1 Save the Music.
It's just savethemusic.org.
Savethemusic.org,
really
yes.
And
if you have an instrument lying around your house that you're not using anymore, donate it to Save the Music or donate some money because we really can put these things to use.
I am going to make a donation in your honor today to,
I appreciate
to
that.
savethemusic.org, and I'm going to encourage everyone listening to do the same. I have a dream that one day, I finish every show by shining a spotlight on a cause that my guest is passionate about, and I wish I could make a giant donation to each of these causes. I can't, but if every person listening were to donate a few dollars, I like to say that every drop put together can make a big splash.
It's true, and in the case of music education, it's really about talk to your local schools, especially the public ones, and find out what's going on with the music and the arts programs in your school. See if there's a way for if you can help, but find out what is the arts education situation in your town, because a lot of people think either we have it or we don't have it, or or they have the instruments but they don't have the funding for the teacher. It's all over the map. Right. So if you can find out what's going on in your neck of the woods, as Al Roker would say, you can. That's the first kind of step.
I can imagine that there may even be something as simple as if your office would donate the copier time to make sheet music for everybody.
Sure.
That
all of that
it's
counts.
not about, you don't have to have like a saxophone that you're not using lying around your house.
No.
Nor do you have to have $1 million. But if you can get your boss to let you use the copier to run off, 30 copies of a song for the after school orchestra.
Find out how you can help. That's what's really important regarding this type of stuff.
Or pass out programs.
Whatever it is.
Something.
Yeah.
So savethemusic.org. They've helped over 2,000 schools start music programs and impacted millions of children. So apparently a donation of $50 will give one child access to music education for a year. And in the grand scheme of things, $50 ain't nothing, but it's, when you think about the lifetime of value that will give to a child.
Right.
Yeah,
and and what it really is also, you think about some of the inner city neighborhoods, and you think about some of the places in this country where once those kids are out of school, who knows where, if they're spending time on the street before they go home, think about if they had another hour at school to keep them out of whatever damage they can get into on the streets, but they were, they put a violin in their hands. That's something.
I mean, when I was in third grade, every kid in my class in public school got a recorder.
Oh, hot cross buns was my jam for years.
And you know, like, I don't know how much a recorder costs, but it doesn't cost as much as a violin.
It was true.
But,
It's true.
So, I don't know. Like, I wish I had all the money in the world. Thank you for using your voice. I mean, I say this basically every episode. What good is it having a public platform if you're not using it to make the world a better place?
100%. It was the same thing when I came out about testicular cancer. I mean, it was the same thing about that. There was no reason to talk about it unless I was going to encourage, other men to frickin' go to the doctor. So it is. That's when you are known for whatever it is that you're known for. The objective isn't to be more known. The objective is to say, am I known enough to do some good with it? Mm-hmm. So I try to do that as much as possible.
So where can people find you on social media?
Oh, on the Insta, on the Twitter, on the Facebook.
You have to remember how to spell Erich.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I can't tell you how much it still affects me to my core when people spell my name wrong. It's ErichBergen. Blame my parents. The H is silent but annoying.
He puts the rich in Erich.
Did you really just do that?
It's a good way to remember it.
Listen, there's still people, the Madam thing of Madam Secretary, I've even seen CBS press releases go out with Madam spelled wrong.
Ugh, what is wrong with people? Nobody can spell Heywood either.
H-E-Y?
Yeah. It's like, hey.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
You'll remember it now, though.
Now you will. It's true.
All
hey,
right.
Wood.
Exactly. I have not heard that a million times in my life. All right. Everybody follow Erich Bergen, ErichBergen on Twitter and Insta. Go to savethemusic.org.
Lisa with an S called. Lisa with an S called. Mm-hmm. I need my own version of that.
I love it. And, of course, you can find me here on dnrstudios.com/Laura every Monday and Wednesday at noon.
Minutes to showtime.